We don't go into the basements at night. So, I'll try to keep this relatively short. My wife and I sold our first house to capitalise on the housing market on the use of the windfall to pay off our student loans and our car, etc. After a year at renting at an insanely high price per month, we decided we wanted to buy again. We found an old house in the old part of town. When I say old, I mean old. This house was built in like 1883, which makes it 140 years old next year. Single story, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. We were the only bid on the house, which considering the market right now, was very hard to believe. But regardless, the house was ours, and my wife, myself and our daughter moved in. The house was covered in crosses all over the main level. Not being Christian, we removed them all. At first it just was what it was. An old house comes with old problems, but it was nothing we couldn't handle. It wasn't until we found the door to the basement that everything changed. The basement was hand dug out with poured cement and carpeting dividing the 2 sections separated by a wall and a door. The first section was carpeted and what I call presentation ready. It's the area you'd show a company. From the first area you could access the hydro panel and have room for storage. The area beyond the door was about as different as you could get. Bare concrete floor, strange writing on the walls, false wall panels, etc. If I'd had the choice, I'd stay out there entirely, but it's how you get to the water heater and the furnace, so I went down there quite regularly. While I went downstairs one day, working, it was the first part of the basement I heard a strange noise from. Thinking it was the furnace, I went to check it out. Entering the second area, I walked past these strange writings on the walls to the furnace when I noticed a strange small door built into the wall. The only thing we knew about the previous owners was that the family had owned the house for over 100 years and were known in the neighbourhood as being very strange and kept entirely to themselves. Opening the door, I found a small stone statue of a tall figure wearing tattered robes, a hood covering his face, and horrific tentacles coming from under. The noise happened again, and I dropped the statue out of shock. It broke on the floor. Inside the opening was a bunch of old yellow papers and books. I didn't want to touch anything else, so I left and I went upstairs. The night after the sunset, we heard rumbling in the basement and we swore we heard something growling. The next morning I went downstairs and found the walls covered in a symbol I didn't recognise, and I grew afraid. We hired someone to come out and take a look. The hired hand went downstairs and never came back. I don't know how to explain it. The partition door closed behind him, locked, and the noise came again. And when he started screaming, I pried the door open, but he was gone and the statue was back in place and whole again. We don't know if it was the removal of the crosses that brought them back into our world. We've become devoted servants because we have no choice now, to keep our family safe. I send offerings down to the beast or whatever it is, just so it leaves us alone. I've taken to displaying the statue upstairs and I've read the books. I know what the sign is, and I know what the statue is, but I can't write it here. You can come over and I'll be happy to tell you. It'll have to be at night time though, when the stars are right, and the carcosa calls, and you can see the basement for yourself. But first, I'm curious. Have you seen the yellow sign?